Have you ever stopped to think about your mind as, well, a kind of toolkit? A set of skills you've been building and sharpening your entire life? Today, we're going to pop open that toolkit. We'll get into how you build, use, and maintain the most incredible tool you'll ever own, your mind. So, the million-dollar question is, where do we even begin? How does a mind actually get built? It's this amazing, lifelong construction project that starts way earlier than you might think.
Okay, to wrap our heads around this, psychologists use a model called the information processing approach. And honestly, the analogy is perfect. Think of your brain as the physical hardware of a computer, and your thinking, your cognition, as the software running on it. It's all about how we take in information, play around with it, and save it for later. So, for our first section, let's take a look at that blueprint. We're going to explore the fundamental mechanics that lay the foundation for absolutely everything we think and learn.
It really boils down to three key mechanisms. First up is encoding. That's just getting information logged into your memory. Like a kid realizing that a squiggly cursive S is the same letter as a printed S. Then there's automaticity. This is when you've done something so many times, it becomes second nature, like when you read a word without even thinking about the individual letters. And finally, strategy construction. This is all about creating new, better ways to do things. Like when you learn to stop and ask yourself, okay, what did I just read? So what's the very first tool we grab from our toolkit? It's gotta be attention. The best way to think about it is like a flashlight in a pitch black room. Whatever you point it at is what you get to see and process. And just like a good flashlight, this one has different settings. Selective attention is that super focused beam, like when you're trying to hear one person's story in a loud, crowded party. Divided attention is when you try to shine it on two things at once. We call it multitasking. Sustained attention is just holding that beam steady for a long time. And executive attention, that's the most advanced setting. It's about planning where to point the beam, checking to see if it's working, and changing your plan if it's not.
And our skill with that flashlight, it changes big time over our lives. As babies, we're just drawn to anything new and shiny. In childhood, we get better at focusing on what's actually important, not just what's flashy. As teenagers, we get really good at shifting our focus. But all that medium multitasking can actually mess with our memory. And, well, later in adulthood, trying to split that beam of attention gets a whole lot harder.
All right, let's move on to the next major tool in the box, memory. If attention is the flashlight, memory is the huge filing cabinet where we store all the stuff we've shined a light on. But before we go any further, just take a second. What is the absolute first thing you can remember from your life? Seriously, how old were you? 2? Maybe 3? Yeah, if you struggled to come up with anything before you were 3, you're not alone. At all. For most of us, those first few folders in our mental filing cabinet are just empty. And there's a name for this. It's called infantile amnesia. The easiest way to think about it is that the filing cabinet was still being built. The brain structures responsible for creating and retrieving long-term memories just weren't fully online yet. The information was coming in, but there wasn't a good system to file it away properly. So once that filing cabinet is up and running, how is it organized? Well, it's kind of split into two main sections. You've got episodic memories. These are your personal stories, the where and when of your life, like your first day of school. Then you have semantic memories, which are just facts about the world, like knowing that Paris is the capital of France. Now, what's fascinating is that as we get older, it can get a bit harder to pull out those specific episodic stories. But our library of semantic facts, that tends to stay remarkably strong. Okay, so we've got our flashlight of attention and our filing cabinet of memory. Now we need the workbench, the place where we pull out these tools to actually think, solve problems, and make big decisions. The manager of this whole operation, the foreman of your mental workshop, is called executive function. It's this whole set of critical mental skills, things like planning, self-control, mental flexibility, and it's mostly run out of the prefrontal cortex of your brain. A classic and kind of cute way to see executive function in action is the famous marshmallow test. You put a kid in a room with one marshmallow. You tell them they can eat it now, or if they can wait until you get back, they'll get 2. That ability to wait, to resist the impulse, that's executive function, right there. But our decision-making doesn't happen in a bubble. Check this out. One study found that when teenagers are driving alone, they're relatively safe. But the second you put their friends in the car with them, the likelihood they'll make a risky decision goes through the roof. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes our executive function isn't just in our head,
It's sitting right there in the passenger seat.
So what happens when you spend a lifetime at this mental workbench honing your craft? Something incredible. You develop expertise. You build up such a deep, organized web of knowledge in one area that solving problems in that domain becomes almost automatic. It's fluid, it's efficient, it's mastery.
Okay, we built the toolkit, now we've got to talk about maintenance. For our last section, let's look at how we can keep our cognitive tools in peak condition for our entire lives.
The guiding principle here is really simple, and I guarantee you've heard it before. Use it or lose it. Your mental skills are a lot like muscles. If you don't exercise them, they can weaken over time.
So how exactly do we use it? Well, the research points to a whole bunch of things. Of course, there are the obvious mental workouts, like reading, puzzles, or learning a really challenging new skill. But you might be surprised to hear that physical exercise is huge for brain health, and so is just getting out and being social. It all keeps the mind active and engaged. Finally, we get to the master tool, the one that governs all the others. It's called metacognition. This is literally thinking about thinking. It's your ability to step back and understand your own thought processes, to know which tool to use for which job and how to use it best. It's basically the user manual for your entire toolkit.
You see, this cognitive toolkit of yours isn't something you just build once and then you're done. No way. It's a lifelong project. So the question I want to leave you with is pretty simple. Now that you know all this, how are you going to keep your toolkit sharp?